Hi and welcome to today's live chapter reading of Avenging Devil Part 1 by Manda Mellett, courtesy of Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Safi, 4 months ago. How did it, or rather I, come to this? My hands twist in my lap as I sit on a filthy couch in the clubroom of the Crazy Wolves MC in Nevada, scared and nervous, with every fibre of my being on alert. Clenching when I hear his voice, I try to keep my eyes lowered, but they rise automatically as I hear his tone. I look down again fast. He's angry. No good ever comes of that. My quick, stolen glance at least shows, for once, his ire isn't directed at me. Instead, his focus is on a poor prospect standing, shaking in front of him. There's a scratch on my bike, Duke sneers. What the fuck did you do to it? Around him stands Knife, the Prez, Slit, the Sergeant-at-Arms, and other members of the MC looking on. Their arms are folded, and all have the same expression of anger on their faces. I know immediately the prospect won't get any sympathy or support from them. No one goes against Duke. Jude, a pleasant young man who's only been trying to earn his patch for a couple of months, holds out his hand in supplication. I cleaned it, VP. That's all. When his voice croaks, he clears his throat, but he's not successful in hiding the tremor. There was already a scratch on it. I didn't do it. Honest to fucking God, I didn't. He glances around as though looking for help, but no one steps forward. Duke moves fast, his large hands circling Jude's throat. The prospect stands stoic and valiantly pretends he's not choking. You're a fucking liar. Holding Jude in place, Duke's eyes encompass the men standing impassively around. Anyone here want a man who can't tell the truth as a fucking member? Or who takes the Lord's name in vain? You fucking what? Slinger throws at Stoat, and shrugs and goes red while a few others snort. Yeah, God and the Wolves don't have much of an understanding. I reckon. He abandoned the club when it was founded, and there's no chance of him listening in, let alone being offended. I know none of my prayers have been answered, and I've sent up too many to count. Slit spits on the ground. A man who can't admit the truth has no fucking business in an MC VP. Since when? I ask myself cynically. But I'm the only doubter, as too fucking right is echoed around him. As though coming to realise he's in danger of losing his chance at his patch, and maybe more than that, Duke tries to defend himself, stressing again. It was already there. I left the bike how I found it. I could have told him it's not worth the breath he's wasted. Once Duke's mind is made up, nothing will change it. As for the scratch, Duke was right. I could confirm it. I'd noticed it yesterday and had almost asked Duke how he'd gotten it last night. Almost. Luckily I know better and had kept my mouth shut, as I do now. I'm probably the undeserving woman God thinks I am, as heaven help me, but I stay dumb, even though I suspect I know what's coming. This isn't about a scratch, real or imagined. This is something worse. The signs are all there. The muscles in Duke's jaw ticks, a sure sign he's itching for violence. Pre-warned by my prior experiences, it's certain if I declared the prospect was right, it would be me feeling Duke's fists raised in anger. Call me a coward, but those I've felt too many times before to speak up and face them again. I'm Duke's old lady. I wear his patch. My more correct title would be his punching bag. How did I get here? Inwardly I shake my head as I ask myself the question again, zoning out of the here and now, which is something I wish I could escape from. 5 years back, I met a different man, one who in no way resembled the man in front of me now. One who was kind, charming, and loving, and who had appeared in my life at exactly the right time. I suppose, having already been let down by my cheating ex-husband, I was ripe pickings for anyone who'd appreciate me. All it had taken were a few kind words, special smiles seemingly only for me, and all given by a handsome man who behaved like a gentleman, and who was generous with compliments as well as with his money. That was the man I'd met, not the monster in front of me now. I had known that Duke was a member of a motorcycle club from the start, and it hadn't bothered me. My ex had been a banker, and his respectable profession hadn't stopped him from taking off with his PA 10 years his junior. When I told him my sorry story, Duke had declared he'd never trade me in for a younger model, assuring me I was the only wife he'd ever need. Over the past 5 years, he'd proved himself right. Duke didn't need to cut me loose or try to deceive me. No, he was completely upfront, having both his cake and eating it. He kept me, and if he wanted to plant his dick elsewhere, he never bothered to make a secret of his infidelities, often using the club whores in front of me. More than once he suggested I could learn a lot from them. Why did he want an old lady? I've never really figured that out. The one benefit I could see was my use as a shield to stop any other girl from getting ideas above their station. I was some kind of trophy, someone good brought into the evil world, someone he could corrupt and treat however he wanted. Or at least that's what I supposed. He'd never enlightened me as to the truth of the matter. I know part of it was to punish my dad, something I wasn't responsible or asked for. While my mind's been wandering, Duke's been letting the prospect's torture play out. It's not the first time I've seen him use this ploy as he stands silent, his eyes focus on Jude, giving him time to wonder if he's going to be offered some way to make recompense for his imagined crime. Knowing Duke too well, I hold no optimism on that count. If anyone heard my story, they'd ask why I stay, why I put up with the moods, the anger, the striking, why I allow my body to be a mass of bruises and healed broken bones from the too many count beatings. Do you think it's by choice? If I had a way out, I'd take it. Truth is, I'm trapped. I'm Duke's property, not my own person anymore. I've no other identity except that of his old lady and wife. None of the Crazy Wolves MC would so much as lift a finger to help me get away. Believe me, I've tried to escape, more times than I can count. Always I'm caught and dragged back, kicking and screaming. I always get punished. Still I try. Freedom is worth the risks that I take, although the penalty worsens each time. A few weeks back I'd tried again. When I'd gotten no further than just beyond the fence of the compound, Duke had dragged me back. Being a master of torture, he'd left me to languish for a couple of days alone in a room at the back of the clubhouse. When he'd next appeared, he'd taken me violently. Then, when I was still catching my breath, he'd taken a baseball bat to both my legs. Then had laughed as he left me capable of moving. That will stop you escaping again, he callously told me. At least he'd lost interest while using me, while our legs were in casts. Apparently annoying to have around, I'd been left in that room, isolated with only the prospects to take care of me, with them being issued with strict instructions not to engage in conversation and only to provide the minimum of care. Painful though it had been, those weeks had been like a vacation. For Duke, I'd ceased to exist. I was more often cold and hungry, but it had been a break I cherished, a distance from the man I hate with everything that I am. He never visited me, and I never asked to see him. I dreamed he was dead, but when I was healed, it was only to find I was still living my nightmare. The prospects had obeyed him blindly, seemingly immune to the helpless state I was in, doing the bare minimum to keep me alive. All except for Jude. Jude, the newest prospects, who retained an element of humanity about him, and who was even then becoming uncertain about his place in the MC. Jude and I had become friends. No funny business. I'm always open enough to be his mother. But when he was sure he wouldn't be missed, he'd stay with me longer than he was strictly allowed. We talked. At first my voice, unused, was rusty. During our brief conversations, I'd found he was trapped as much as myself. Despite the promise that prospecting goes both ways, a chance to get to know the club, and for the club to vet their prospective new member, Jude had discovered no one gets away from the Crazy Wolves. Nope, once they've got you in their clutches, the only way out are to become a member, or die. Jude would do nothing other than do as instructed and work to gain his patch. At least he had that way to improve his lot, unlike me. As no woman becomes a member, and Duke's made it clear he'll never let me go, only death will end the torture of being Duke's old lady. I half dread, half long for it every day. Jude fucked up though. Duke has eyes and ears everywhere, and somehow he learned that Jude gave solace to me. My gut churns as I'm forced to watch the scene play out. Unless hell has iced over and I'm mistaken, Jude's going to end his career with the Crazy Wolves tonight. Whatever sympathies I have for the prospect come friend, there's nothing I can do to prevent it. Any interference would make it worse, not just on him, but also for me. If it has to happen, make it quickly, I plead in my head, while knowing here any prayers go unanswered. As so often is the case, silence stretching out needs to be broken. I'll fix the scratch, Duke breathes first, his eyes urgently searching the men surrounding him for any sign of compassion or an indication they'll spring to his defence. They won't. They'll likely all know how Duke's bike got scratched and that it wasn't his fault, but none of them will say a word to help the unlucky prospect. As bad as their VP, they'll more likely be chomping for blood. Their nostrils are already flaring as though they can already smell it. Duke growls, I know to interpret as a warning. You're going to fix nothing. You ever touch my property again, any of my property. He stresses the last word with a quick glance towards me, then to Slit he instructs, hold him. It happens so fast. It's not in the slightest bit fair. Given no chance with his hands pulled tightly behind him, Jude doesn't get an option to fight back. Duke, a big muscular man, lets his fists fly. As blow after blow rains down on the prospect, Duke barely pauses to draw breath. When Jude slumps, Slit drops him and Duke uses his feet. The sounds of flesh being pulped merge with the cracking of bones. What had been a man a few minutes ago quickly becomes an unrecognisable corpse on the floor. Duke continues long after he must have killed him, only stopping at the point where he gets bored. He's breathing heavily, then he issues his next instruction. Prospect, take the fucking trash out. Jude, I know I must. I sit stoically, trying to divorce my senses from reality, as though what I was watching was a film. But hardened as I am to Duke's excesses, Jude's painful and so unnecessary demise is too much. A sob escapes me. Part of me wishes I'd spoken up, though nothing I could have done would have prevented the senseless killing that had just taken place. If I had tried to defend him, there'd probably now be 2 dead bodies on the floor. If I were braver, maybe I would have said something and allowed death to be my escape. Maybe it would be easier than existing like this day after day, week after week, year after year, until I can't remember who I was before I met Duke. That Sapphire wouldn't have watched on as a man had his life beaten out of him. That woman would have spoken up. That woman has since learned.